And I can see Judy there, I can see Kristen, and some people who I haven't met before. So it's really, really great to have you all on board. I'm just going to share my screen and present some of all about empathy. So, hi Judy. It's so good to see you all on board. So I'm just going to put my screen up and we're going to go through what is empathy, why do I think it's a superpower, and yeah, go from there. So this journey started way back in 2017 and really about empathy. Why is empathy important? What can empathy mean for our learners? What can empathy mean for me? And so we're going to go through what is weaving empathy, what is the weaving process, how does it link to practice, how can we bring it into education, how can you take part, and what can you do now? So I'm just going to give you a little background. Some people do know me, some people don't know what I've been through and what I've been going on. So my teaching journey started way back in 2014. I was so excited to be a teacher, so excited to get on board and start my teaching journey. But then it was the biggest dip in my life. By November 2014, I was ready just to give up. I was ready to leave the teaching profession after wanting to be a teacher all my life. I've always wanted to be a teacher. And I started to think about why did I want to leave the profession? What was happening to me? Why was I feeling that way, and have empathy for myself? And it made me start to realize what empathy was, why is it important, and how can we bring it into our practice? So I started looking. I was an arts lead, and it got me on the idea of creativity. Why is creativity important? How does it link to the curriculum? How does it link to education? And that really was the turning point in my career. I didn't want to give up anymore. I didn't want to spark my passion into education. And so I saw Sir Ken Robinson in London in 2017. And that was just, yeah, that was just a big, big highlight. You can see the roller coaster going back up again. And moving from the I give up moment to I want to start on this journey and see how we can make education better. And so I left London in 2017 and went traveling in South America. And then I moved to New Zealand, and that was just amazing to go through all those different things. I ended up joining the Google Innovator Project in 2019, and that really did change. It brought that creativity into education as well. Moved to Japan and started last year exploring that, and then I'm back now in New Zealand, ready to keep on going with the process. And so a background to empathetic educators, that's where empathy is for me. It's how can we bring empathy into education? And that's been all across the past 5 years has been working on how can we bring that into it? And so it really links into product and process. I think my whole journey for Google Innovator has been process. I keep thinking I am at the stage where I'm ready to release, and then it's like, nope, pivoting, going back and back and back and challenging myself to go and how can we go deeper and trusting the process versus the final product. And I think that I wanted to share this little clip with Andrew. Thank you, Andrew, going back into Singapore, where he was sparking us to think about how can we make that challenge manageable. And I think that's what my biggest takeaway from the Innovator product was. It's not about the end product as such. It's about the process and how you get there and what purpose is the product showing. That's kind of what my kind of takeaway was from it. So since 2019 to now, I haven't got the final product yet. I'm still part of the process. And so what is weaving empathy? I'm going to show you weaving empathy is an active inquiry into understanding connection, engagement, and overall understanding for our learners. And why do I think it's important? So for teachers, I think it's important because the more empathy we have for our learners, the more we can understand them, the more we can connect with them, the more we can engage with them. For our learners, teaching them about empathy, the more that they can live a connected life and understand others around them as well. And leaders, why is it important for that? So leading with empathy in your teams, it allows you to connect with them and understand them too. So it's so important at all those different levels to actually weave empathy through our communities. And so as part of the process, I've kind of created this weaving process for empathy. And it doesn't happen alone. So if teachers are only the ones being empathetic, then that's just happening in silo. If we're only teaching learners to be empathetic, then that's only happening to them. If the leader's the only one being empathetic, then it's only happening at the different levels. So if we weave empathy through, that's how it's going to happen. It doesn't happen in silo. It happens through connection. And so the tagline of weaving empathy is the power is within our grasp. As you can see, it's within our growth, it's within our relationships, it's within our accountability, it's within our challenge, it's within our systems, and it's within our perspectives. So I'm going to go through why I think those 6 things are so key to empathy and how we can move from empathy being this touchy-feely, something that's kind of abstract, into a more practical toolkit that we can bring into our classrooms and into education. And so like you said, like I showed you at the very start, the roller coaster of my life, I used to kind of think that whenever I was moving from one step to another, to another, to another, there was moving to this ladder of life that I thought that one step would unlock the next step. But like this says, examining the wall it's up against. One of the reasons my biggest dip in my first year of education was because my ladder wasn't strong. So I think the weaving part of it is where we can weave the one idea with another. And the polarizing things that are happening in education is that I'm right, you're wrong. You're right, I'm wrong. Like it has to be this. I've had a lot of conversations about the and approach. So weaving my idea with your idea. Why does it have to be that I'm right, you're wrong? Why can't it be that we're talking about it together? And Stephanie Rothstein, another person who's from our Google SEA 19, she talks about collaboration versus competition. And collaborating with each other, weaving together the ideas will help us move forward together in a more sustainable environment. And so I've created like this little visual for what is weaving empathy. And so the weaving process is that it goes around the person and the other person, or around the idea and the other idea. And it creates this infinity loop, but the actual infinity loop only has 2 loops. This loop has the one in the middle. And like you can see here, it's weaving boundaries with balance. And the part in the middle is what happens. That's the weaving part, that actually the transformational step. The next step is the possibilities that can happen in that space in between us. And so I think like the idea of taking risks, knowing your limits. What's that space in between? Knowledge versus skills, rather than knowledge and skills. Weaving it together, creating that space in between it, and moving forward and understanding what that middle part is, to be able to move forward together. That's what I'm really passionate about with weaving empathy. Because going back to that idea of perspectives, I can think one thing and you can think one thing, but it's not about I'm right, you're wrong. It's about how do we weave those perspectives together and create a space of understanding in between us. That's kind of what I'm hoping to get out of weaving empathy. And going back to that process idea, is I've been so confused about how you can bring it together. How can we make empathy come to life and make it a tangible thing for us to do? And I think that tangible thing is that space in between us. We can create that space. We can make it more, we can see it more, rather than us talking past each other, making a space where it can be heard and can be seen. So that's kind of the orbit of opportunity. That's what I'm going to talk about next, is how it all comes together. So how does it link to our practice? And so weaving empathy, there's reciprocal teaching, there's design thinking, there's sustainable development goals, and there's social emotional learning goals. That all comes into the Weaving Empathy program, the Weaving Empathy framework, because I feel like all those different areas, as teachers, we wear so many hats. We have to, like, this is just a small snippet of stuff that we have to know as educators moving forward. So I'm just thinking about how we can weave things together rather than it being all silo subjects, that integrated approach, that weaving process of us putting all those things. So those 4 areas are things that I want to bring into the Weaving Empathy framework. And so that weaving part, as part of Weaving Empathy, when we start next year, it's going to be having 4 phases. And it's empathy with self. Now, we're talking about empathy as a superpower in an abstract way. But I think empathy, if you start with self and understand yourself, then you can move forward and understand others and understand why you interact. If you're trying to create a space in between, it's those beliefs. Why do I believe that thing? Why do I think that way? And understanding yourself, so then you can be aware of what you're bringing to the space and then moving forward with that. And then empathy with another. That's the next phase of it, is if I understand me and I understand what I'm bringing to the space, understand what the next person they're bringing to the space and why they're thinking that way, what's going on with them. As teachers, understand the learner, what space are we creating for them to be part of that community? As leaders, what space are we understanding? I understand myself now. How can I understand my team to create a space for that? The next phase would be empathy with a team. So then you understand your team, yourself and another. Then it goes beyond that. Then how do you understand all the different interconnected parts of the team to then create a space that where we all are connected in all the different parts? And then empathy within teams. So going onto a global space where it's we have team here, team there, like we have today, where we're in different parts of the world, but we have empathy as we're creating this space in this actual format where we're all looking at this slide. That space in between is so important for us all around the world too. So those 4 different areas is what I want to bring with weaving empathy, is understanding at a personal level, and then in a more community level, and then in a more global level. Empathy is the foundation of all those. It's a superpower that I believe that can connect us and understand us through those different spaces. And so this is where I'm actually really excited. So I talked about in 2019, I've gone through all different parts of the process of pivoting and challenging myself. And I'm a big picture thinker. And so it's sometimes hard for me to focus and get myself down to the nitty gritty of how do we make this happen. So talking about process and product. Product is important as well, because that's how we take action. That's how we move on to the next part. And so I'm really proud of myself. The past couple of months, I've got the product that I'm ready to start with in the next year. And that's called Toland. So TOLAND, and teaching opportunities through laughter, adventure, and knowledge. And I'm going to bring you on a little adventure now, telling you about what that is. So Conquest is Empathetic Educators Conquest. And it's making learning fun. It's making learning engaging. And so for years, TOLAND was a space of peace and harmony, filled with light and laughter, until Neuron and his neurons came to spread darkness across the land. The sorcery, stealth, and strength tribes have all been taken over by Neuron's shadow. They need your help to make the sun shine again. Neuron has taken the orbs from the orbit of opportunity, which is the source of all the power on Toland. Can you help us get that orb back and protect the other 2? Across our journey, you will wear different hats that will help us on our quest, filled with adventure and discovery. Are you ready? Let's go. So that's kind of a little introduction into what Toland is, what Conquest is. And I've really been struggling with the idea of how do we make teaching more engaging, as well as making learning more engaging for our students. Because as teachers, I feel like sometimes we go through training where it's just a slideshow after slideshow after slideshow. But I want to see how we can make Conquest part of making training fun for teachers, as well as training for learners to make fun in the classroom too. So that's what I'm kind of looking for Conquest. And so as you can see, each of the characters have a different role. So going back to that, the power is within our grasp, within our growth, our relationships, our accountability, our challenge, our systems, and our perspectives. Each of those things have a character, and you go through actually the journey with them, and they help you delve more deep into that, weaving empathy through all the missions. And as I said, the Sustainable Development Goals, they're kind of the focus of all the activities that we do. And as you can see, this is where I was back in Japan just before I left for New Zealand. And we kind of trialed this out last year, going back to that process idea, really going in with the learners, understanding it with them, trialing it with them. You can see Neuron, and he was our enemy. We were trying to build that up with the learners. And again, going back to practice, how does it link to practice? Now that empathy, again, that weaving of empathy, the quote is, baddies could just be bad. Because there's be people that bad things have happened to. And that's why I want that empathy piece for the learners to understand that this person might have just gone through a bad thing that made him go down a bad path. And so the whole idea of the challenges are to bring those baddies back to the light again, bring that sunshine back to the darkness, bring that light back to the darkness, and what the space in between, what empathy we can have for those characters and what goes on. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. I'm just looking at my time. Yeah, a couple of more minutes left. So like that's where the empathy piece is for me. And this is the Empathetic Educators Planning Partner. And so all the things I've talked about today, it's a lot. And like I said, I'm still learning how to go big picture and bring it down into the actual nitty gritty. But this is basically what it comes down to is our empathy tree. The seeds are nerdy. So we look at topics like neuroscience, empathy, relationships, design, and psychology. We look at all those different things as our foundations to then allow the roots to happen, to allow that grasp to take place. And then from that, we can put the 7 C's out into learning, and learners learn how to be curious. They learn how to be collaborative. They learn how to have confidence and communication. They learn how to have the creativity, the comprehension, and critical thinking. So that's what flourishes out of those seeds that we're putting in. That's what flourishes out of that then. And so my plan is for the next year, so that product element of it again, like that's what the Innovator program for me has been, is moving between the process, weaving the process with the product, and moving back and forth between those. And so my first initial stage will be to go through 6 months of delving deep into these characters, creating resources for teachers and leaders and learners all together to learn through these different 6 elements, and going from that then. So that's kind of where we're at for the product stage of things. So from January of next year, we're going to be starting delving deep and going into those different characters and what they bring to then teach that into our classrooms. And so it'll be kind of like 2 different elements. So I'll have a course where there'll be some resources, like you say, like I showed you before, of what I use in the classroom to bring empathy in. What does it look like actually on a day-to-day basis? But also weaving it towards what could it look like, getting feedback from the team. Like we have Judy here. Judy was part of our podcast session. So really learning together and going through that, as well as creating expert resources to then what you can just take away into the classroom, but also big picture thinking and weaving that together. So that's kind of where I'm at with the weaving process. And what could you do now? So if you're interested in anything I just talked about, I know it's pretty big picture still, but if you're interested in getting nerdy and coming together with empathetic educators and talking more about the neuroscience, the empathy, the relationships, the design thinking and psychology, then you can actually join in. It's going to be starting on the 9th of January. I've partnered with EduSpark, which is fantastic. Andrew Mowat and Craig Kemp. They've been working together to create this amazing platform to teachers. So weaving that Google Innovator project with EduSpark, I'll put in a course together to try and learn, basically, going back to that idea of there'll be resources on there that are actually takeaway and you can put them into your classroom straight away. But there'll also be opportunities for us to all come together and create a community where we can talk about, does that work? Does it not work? Why does it work? What do you think? How can you bring empathy into your practice and grow together with that too? So that's kind of, if you do, you can sign up. You can click on the bit.ly/EE-nerdy. And you can find the resource there, or you can click on the bit.ly/EE-spark 2021, and I'll have the slides for this today where you can click on all the different things. So you can keep up to date with empathetic educators on all the different platforms. I've clicked on, I've put the links on here. So if you do click on that bit.ly thing, then you can come on there and connect as well. So that's basically what weaving empathy is. And I am just an empathy advocate. I just love, love, love it. I just want to make it fun for teachers and learners and leaders and that community as a whole. So yes, that's basically me and empathetic educators and all the different parts of that. So yeah, thank you very much for joining in, and I hope to hear from you soon.